Two terrifying and life-threatening presences were reported mid-last century in Australia. Unrelated but occurring strangely in the same year, both chilling phenomena were witnessed by multiple credible observers. Blairmore terror. Moving ghost lights are usually an intriguing and innocuous distraction, but this phenomenon was reported as giving rise to not only extreme fear but a sense of mortal threat. A mysterious light, which appears in the Burnett region of Queensland, Australia, has become known locally as the Blairmore ghost because common knowledge is that it enshrines the tormented spirits of a succession of homicide victims. The bizarre phenomenon first appeared on Christmas Eve, about 100 years ago, the day after a mailman had met his demise on Blairmore Station, a farming property. The local narrative persisted that when the unfortunate mailman was buried, rigor mortis had not set in, and that First Nation people resident in the area believed him to be still alive. They predicted that he would come back as a frightening devil entity, and it seemed as if this prophecy had come true when the strange light appeared. Many people went on to witness the unexplained light, including Jim Matheson, who was a local Justice of the Peace, former government stock inspector and Brisbane City Councillor. He published a spine-chilling account of his encounter with the Blairmore ghost in 1957. Matheson had been driving his car along the boundary road of Blairmore Station on a humid and stormy night when his vehicle became bogged in a wide area of mud. He was unable to free it and so settled down in the back seat in order to sleep the night through until morning. Just minutes later, another car came hurtling down the road, travelling with such speed that Matheson was unable to get out of his car and warn the driver of the hazard. This second car duly ploughed into the mud up to its axles, also becoming bogged. Its occupants were a commercial traveller and his wife, who chatted with Matheson for a short while before the three returned to their cars to sleep. Soon, Matheson was just dozing off when he heard distant, desperate cries for help. To the pitiful wailing of "Help! Help!" he scrambled out of his car and tried to determine where the cries were coming from. The voice seemed to be calling from the middle of a nearby paddock, so he quickly pulled on his boots and set off in that direction. The cries continued at brief intervals while he strode, but before he had covered 10 paces, he became aware of a heavy mass, he thought half a stone, of sticky black mud clinging to each of his boots. Struggling on, he suddenly saw the flickering light. It was not in a recognisable shape, but swirled and changed, swelling and shrinking like a formless luminous blob of jelly. When Matheson slowly approached the light, it started to dribble towards him like a rotund phosphorescent slug. The pitiful cries for help had become louder and, horrifyingly, seemed to be not only all around him, but inside him, as if entering his body through the pores of his skin. Matheson later admitted that he was completely terrified. He was unable to move, with his legs seemingly frozen, but worse still, he couldn't even think straight. All that he knew for certain was that he was in the grip of some deadly struggle, and that something that was no longer alive and just feet away was robbing him of his own life force. Just as he felt himself being sucked, body and soul, into the phosphorescent apparition, another dramatic sound intruded into his depleted consciousness. Mercifully came the distraction of the commercial traveller's wife, screaming plaintively and spurring him into action. His instinctive urge to go to the aid of a female in distress prompted Matheson to turn and run back to the cars. The dark relief of that action led to his belief that his life was saved in that moment. He related that the 3 travellers then quickly gathered some sticks, paper and petrol and started a fire by which they huddled for both warmth and morale. However, as they hunkered around its cheerful glow all night, they continued to listen to the distant, terrifying and increasingly desperate cries of "help, help" throughout the night, carried towards them by the wind. It was only when dawn broke that the plaintive sounds faded and were finally heard no more. Jim Matheson then searched the paddock in the daylight, but was unable to find anything remarkable or indicative of what had occurred the night before. He later described his experience to a local cattleman who commented that he had been lucky. The cattleman explained that a stockman had once heard the ghost crying for help and had gone to assist. He had been found deceased, and, the cattleman added, his face was not a pretty sight. Some people then believed that his spirit had taken the original ghost's place, and that the stockman had then been trying to catch another victim ever since. He said, "It could have been you out there tonight, Jim, crying for help." No joke. A terrifying joker-like spectre was reported as prowling Melbourne's Luna Park in Australia's southern state of Victoria. Some observers thought the joker was a publicity stunt, but not those who encountered the chilling entity. In 1957, a couple named Roy and Heather, both aged 19, visited Luna Park to celebrate Roy's recent pay rise. It was a cold, stormy Saturday night when they entered through the mouth of the giant grinning face, starting with the tamer attractions due to Heather's fear of heights. They finally worked their way up to the towering Ferris wheel and boarded to be enclosed in a cage where they started to rise as the wheel rotated. Amidst the stunning view of the city lights, a bright flash of lightning followed by a crash of thunder temporarily blinded the pair, and when their eyes adjusted, they were shocked by what they saw, almost 100 metres in the air and without warning. They were suddenly sharing their cage with a third person. Sitting nonchalantly on the restraining bar of the cage and barely a few centimetres away from them was a life-size male figure wearing a costume of a court jester. He wore a three-pointed hat of red, yellow and black and with a golden bell on each point, as well as tight-fitting breeches with one leg red and the other black with a yellow codpiece. His pointed yellow shoes were also trimmed with golden bells. The being's sudden appearance and bizarre outfit were scary enough without its face and form. Its sinuously strong body and lean face bearing a threatening leer. Its eyes smouldered as it stared at the terrified pair, lips drawn back to reveal long pointed teeth. Another crash of lightning lit up the being's teeth and the whites of its eyes, which glistened as it leaned towards them. They shrank back to the sound of its tinkling bells as its bony, red-gloved hand reached out towards Heather. Its long, thin finger stroked her cheek and then was quickly withdrawn as the being leaned back so that most of its body was now outside of the cage. Bells still jingling, the spectre emitted a spine-chilling sound, half laugh and half howl. Just as the utterance reached a deafening crescendo, the appalling figure vanished into the black night air. Despite Roy's insistence that he would complain to the Luna Park manager, Heather dissuaded him and they made a pact to tell no one of the bizarre incident. It was another 20 years before the now married couple disclosed their terrifying experience, only to find out that many others had also sighted the figure they referred to as the Joker, and that there had also been dangerous incidents. A packed train of 10 riders on the scenic railway roller coaster had screamed in double horror when the figure appeared on the track in front of their car, only to pass directly through him. 1 week later, another patron had complained that the Joker had pushed her young daughter Betty off her horse on the merry-go-round. The mother had sat her toddler on the horse and showed the little girl how to hang onto the pole. Then, at the start of her ride, the Joker seemed to have emerged from behind the machinery at the centre of the carousel. The mother watched in horror as the spectre lurched towards Betty, jamming his face right into hers, then roughly shoved her right off the horse. The mum was able to leap onto the merry-go-round to grab and catch the child as she fell. She related that the figure had then slung his leg over Betty's horse as the merry-go-round began to move, then given them both an evil smile as he rode off, as if laughing at them both. With Betty now hysterical, the trembling woman waited for the rotation to return with the intention of giving him a swipe with her handbag. However, Betty's horse was now riderless. As stories about the vexatious and downright dangerous Joker Ghost leaked out, the Luna Park management responded to questions with a no comment, concerned that any publicity would affect business. Fortunately for their bottom line, the last report came barely a year after the first, and no sightings have been reported since.